Welcome to today's episode and the topic of near-death experience and the lessons you can learn from it. If you would like to listen to this episode on another platform, please follow the link in the description. We are going to look at questions like what is a near-death experience, what did Elle see and learn, and what changed in her life after the near-death experience, and of course, much more. For the conversation, I invited Elle Serumaga, and she had her near-death experience in 2015. For more details on her, I shared her links in the description so you can have your follow-ups if you like to. And to make it easier for you to find all the interesting topics you would like, I timestamped the episode so you can jump freely around. Then there's just for me to say thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to talk to you. A warm welcome, Elle.
Hi, Dagmar. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. So we start in the beginning always with a little bit about the guest. So tell us about you and maybe also already how you got into your near-death experience.
Well, the first thing I want to tell you about me is that so far this is one of my favorite interviews because I'm currently in bed in my pajamas and it's very comfortable to be able to talk that way. So
Definitely.
thank you. I like this platform. Um, I had my near-death experience in 2015, and it started when I had an infection, and some other things took place later on that should not have happened. But long story short, I was on life support, and I was induced in order to put less pressure on my organs
Mm-hmm.
and so that I would be able to survive.
Yeah.
Um, I, during that time, of course, I didn't know the transition that I had made. So I was kind of living in two different worlds because I would travel in and out of my body during that time.
Okay.
So there were times that I was able to um, hear around me. And there were times where I was nowhere in the room and times where I was over my body looking at people in this, dimension, existence, reality,
Yeah.
doing things to my body, part of procedures and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, that was my overall kind of the summary of how the near death experience goes. Some people's experiences are short, but are longer. Mine was longer because I nearly died several times, and my prognosis was less than 1%. So they kind of expected me to die and gave me my last rites,
Mm-hmm.
which I was not conscious for, but last rites were given. And I think it was I was told, I think it was September 19th. They're on the 19th, between the 19th and the 20th. It was a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was told, or my family was told that I only had a few hours to live.
Wow. And from that on, like, so how did it start that you really started, I would say, leave your body, because we need to go into what is actually a near-death experience.
Mm-hmm. So a near-death experience is when you either, in general, you leave your body. Our bodies are really avatars, but that's not where our consciousness lives. Where our consciousness lives within us, and we have the aura of that around us.
Yeah.
So when you leave your body, and when I was leaving my body periodically, I don't remember specifically the times that I was prompted to leave my body. I self-left, I wasn't necessarily told, but say I was in a procedure that was uncomfortable in the
Yeah.
physical, so I would just leave out of just wanting to be more comfortable. And um, at that one of the times that I left, I was an orb, and I knew I was an orb because, of course, over the years, you watch things, about orbs and what have you, but even though you don't really understand, you speculate, maybe that orb is a spirit, things like that. That was confirmed for me that those orbs are actually souls. They're actually humans. They're actually, people. Because when I was an orb and I left my body, I went to space, I had awareness of myself.
Yeah.
And I had consciousness. But when I looked around, I didn't even have eyes actually. But as a programmed human, for natural things like looking and touching, I looked around and I did not see a body,
Mm-hmm.
but I had awareness of myself, and I had awareness that I could see. So like I had spiritual eyes and not physical eyes.
Mm.
So, and I could see that I was an orb. And that was a very interesting experience because it's one thing to see it in, like, say, a documentary, a TV show, or something like that. But it's another thing to experience that as first person.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. And I was able to float out into space, and I was able to travel, and I traveled past nebula,
Mm-hmm.
and I traveled to another planet. It was so peaceful and so beautiful, um, that, honestly speaking, when I when I die again, I wouldn't mind being shot out to space or something like that. But it was just very peaceful, very beautiful. I also traveled to another planet.
Mm-hmm.
And this planet, they were aware of human beings.
Oh,
And
cool.
similarly to how, of course, we can say this is speculative, but it's not actually speculative. We know that there are intelligent species from other planets that appear to be visiting here. I say appear because, um, uh, from a factual perspective, then, of course, we have to say that. But um, the they seem to be aware of human beings, and I was kind of like the reverse alien. So I
Yeah.
was with my guide. I was in the corner. There were some buildings, and I was kind of looking out and looking at the people. And I was in my body at that point, though, was misshapen, and I think that that was the case because I was not in the, like the atmosphere, the place that I was supposed to be in. So my presentation was different. And so basically, I was observing, and my guide was telling me, there is intelligent life in other planets and other galaxies. This is a planet. Observe the beings, and just kind of educational type of thing,
Yeah.
like I was watching a documentary or something, but I was living it basically,
Yeah.
but being educated about a different species of people, or of beings. um they had translucent skin, and but it was different colors at different times. And I don't know why that was the case, if there was some genetic thing going on, or if it was a mood thing that changed, made their colors different. Either case, that was very interesting, and was one of the times that I remember the best
Mm-hmm.
in my near-death experience. Um, Another time was when I was in a procedure room, and I suppose this was probably around one of the times that I would, was grim for me, dying.
Yeah.
I think it was the time where my head was shaven. They do a death preparation, but I'm not really sure of that. Either way, I know it was in a procedure room. They were doing something. It was on, an operating bed, and the doctors were talking about me and saying how grim my situation was, and that it was I guess it's just it was kind of negative about my prognosis and what was going on. And it because I'm still myself consciously,
Yeah.
I got irritated and I was confused because I was thinking, why are they saying this? I'm right here, why, so basically I was arguing with them without them hearing me. So so that was one of the times that I remember as well in my near-death experience. And I was taken through before all of this happened, when I heard about the Akashic records. In my mind, I always imagined like a library of books. What I discovered in my near-death experience was that the Akashic records is actually more of an interactive space. So basically, the Akashic records are more like you're taken through scenes, like you're traveling through information. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's not opening a book. It's more like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Star Trek, but it's
Yes.
like it's like a holodeck, stepping into the experience. That's what the Akashic Records actually is. And it's not opening books and scrolls.
And was it just for your life, or also, like you said, from the planet that you saw? Is that also like an experience that you experienced in the Akashic records?
No, that was actually going there. But I had three guides, and one of them took me to places. Another one had me experience things by saying merge. So I would, go into the experience to learn and understand, have perspective. Some of those things were good and some of them were bad, but it was for my edification so that I would be able to, I asked for it basically, because I wanted to know, I wanted better understanding of what was going on. Why was life the way it was? Why were certain things? I had a lot of questions. And this was the questions I had were before this experience happened. Before this experience, when I would think about mortality, period, over time, as we all do, I would say to myself, well, the first thing I'm going to do when I die is go, and ask God, why this, why that, whatever. So basically, my request was being granted.
Yeah, your wish was fulfilled. I was just thinking
Right.
that.
Right. So, with the Akashic records, my guide helping me to step into the Akashic records was showing me things about the world. A lot of the things were about the future. Some of them were about my own personal future.
Yeah.
Some of them were about the future of our world now.
Fascinating.
And also about why certain things were the way that they were. Because, you know, it was fulfilling for me to know that, because that's just the way I'm designed, you know. And so I learned a few things, some of the things about the future in the world that were not pleasant.
Okay.
But some
If
of
you
the
would like
things,
to share, you can
sure,
definitely do that.
sure. But some of the things, but in the entire experience, I was protected. So there was a level of detachment, because it's kind of like you can see a house on fire and be shown this is what it's like when a house is on fire. But if you know that you're protected and you're not going to burn, then you could be an observer from a distance and understand and just learn about what it's like. And, you know, the other thing too is that when you're on the other side, or you're astrally traveling in and out of your body, you have your mind shifts, your mind expands, so that you don't really have the same type of human emotions. And that's why a lot of NDEers experience a sense of, when they're leaving, they don't necessarily want to come back, even if they have a child, or even if they have loved ones. There's a sense of like, well, it's better here. So, you know, which when you think about it is pretty detached, from human emotion, because, you know, we want to go back to the things that we love. But either way, some of the things that I saw were about problems in the world. I don't know how it is in Germany. When you mention certain things, then it's a problematic in the, in the videos, and picked up and can cause an issue. But I don't know. Can I mention a couple of things, or do I?
Feel free. I'm gonna test if someone is picking up on it or not, or if YouTube is picking up on it. I'm totally open for everything, because that's what I'm here for.
Okay. So I saw some things regarding a sex trade in an Asian country, that there was actually a corporation involved, and that there was so basically, we think of sex trade as something that's kind of like more what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as sophisticated, as not a sophisticated operation necessarily. At least the average person doesn't think it's a sophisticated operation. But what I saw was there's actually a sophisticated operation, like a corporation, in regards to that. And which was really disturbing. I saw something really weird, and I, had been processing it up until probably about, I would say about 3 months ago, maybe 2 months ago. I was shown these girls that are called the squishy girls. And after the fact, after my NDE, I just kind of put that on the shelf, like, okay, I don't understand that. I'm just going to put that on, compartmentalize that. Whatever. But I saw recently that there's a trend on TikTok called NPCs, of people that are like pretending to be AIs, girls that are pretending to be AIs, and they get like they're making a lot of money, and they're doing things, and just pretending to be an AI, and they're getting these gifts from the audience watching. And it seems pretty harmless. I didn't really think much about it. And then I saw something else that showed the origin of that was actually in Asia, I think in the Chinese sex trade or Japanese sex trade, one of them. And it was something that was connected to the sex trade, where it was they were kind of pleasing men by behaving a certain way and things like that. And I just got so shocked when in the the information that I saw, the woman looked like the woman that I saw. And I realized what I was told were like the squishy, squishy girls. It was the NPC thing that was connected to this sex trade type of thing. So the NPCs are doing things now that seem innocent. There are a lot of people that are making money from it. It seems fairly harmless, a bit stupid, but harmless. But there's actually a deeper and darker connection to the whole thing. And that's one of the things that I saw. So another thing that I saw that was dark was about organ harvesting.
Oh.
And yeah, and also there was a big building that was like cement like looking, and there were people that were either donating their bodies, family members or whatever, giving them, people up, or they were being taken. So both of those ways of getting organs were being done. And that was also an operation. They were taking organs and recycling them into the system for organ transplants and whatnot. But that was also a business. And some people were giving up people, and some people were taken to, unwillingly. And this was done. So those were some of the darker things that I saw.
So you basically not just had a good experience, so you saw like what we humans would call good and evil in your near-death experience.
Yes, and the and when I'm careful to not to say necessarily evil, I saw good and reality.
Yeah.
Meaning that um when I would be placed in the experience, I wasn't thrown into it against my will. I was kind of, it's what I wanted to know. So it was because I was curious as to what was going on with certain things in the world. And so it was, I don't want to call it evil, because it was a blessing that I was given an answer that I was looking for. So, yeah, so those were some of the things. Some of the better things I experienced were that, or I should say, less problematic things I experienced. My guide said, that I would merge with a fish. So I merged with a fish. I was able to merge with a lily and have full expression of those things. And what my guide was teaching me was that all beings are conscious. They just have different frequency and different expression. And so, you know, it's one thing to say you're going to act like a fish, but to actually be a fish to the point where even your mind switches to fish mode, for me, that was really cool.
So how was
Because
it?
it was great, because it was so simple. There was nothing to do.
Just swimming.
Yeah, just swimming. Just like Dory.
Yeah. That
Just
was
keep
what I was
swimming.
thinking is just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Right. Right. That's literally what it was like. And fish are very non-complicated, at least certain species are, not the mammals, but yeah, it was very, I didn't really have many emotions, any complex feelings, just instinct, basically. And the main instinct was just to look at things
Oh,
and
fascinating.
yeah, and observe. So it's a great lesson in learning how to just be able to observe things objectively and to not insert, you know, feelings, opinions, judgments, things like that. So I don't know if my guide may have wanted me to learn that, but either way, it was a nice feeling. The lily was, whereas the fish was more just kind of like non-emotional, not even happy, not sad, not anything. The lily, being a lily, was felt a little more conscious than a fish, which was surprising to me.
Yeah.
The lily was the lily was more on the spectrum of happy and very content and peaceful, but also some intelligence of like understanding who humans were. Um, whereas the fish was just kind of dumb and aware, simple and aware. The lily had understanding, like of humans, had a connection, had a higher frequency and connection with the sun and the water, which actually made the lily a little bit more complex than the fish. And so I was just floating and observing people going by, and absorbing the sun, the water. I would say that it was just beautiful and really peaceful, and it was great as well.
It sounds definitely like it, like just floating on the water and just enjoying.
Yeah. And the sunshine,
Yeah.
the rays.
Nice.
So, but I learned about frequency, and that all of us have different frequencies, and our frequencies can, work together with each other, like a song. So, like your frequency is different than my frequency. We put those together. It could make a song of some kind that that's not really audible to us, but it's the frequency of that energy that emanates from us speaking to each other, what we're doing, what we're feeling.
Yeah.
And that's also connected to the reason why some people have deep love with each other. It's their frequency song created together.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And frequency is also, uh, we use it and we don't realize that we use it, by translating that frequency into words. So our words, can be blessings or curses, but they're actually, it's not like some weird type of, you know, um, thing. We're actually that's how we're actually creating and manifesting, is that it's a kind of a process of taking our frequency, which is our energy. It goes through our little spiritual production system, a spiritual assembly line,
Yeah.
and is spat out as words, depending on, what we say. And that's how things go.
That's really beautiful. That already brings me on so many new questions, but to not lose that thread, is there anything else you experienced on Earth that you could try out? I would say it's like being a fish or being a lily is already pretty amazing. Was there anything else you were able to try out?
Um, let's see. Um, just in general, dimensional travel is pretty cool. Something for the future. I don't know how far into the future this is going to be, but it's going to become more known about interdimensional beings and being able to travel. And so at some point, that's going to be kind of more of a more common thing than less common, is that we'll be able to travel interdimensionally. But I think that's years and years and years out. So, but we'll know about it for a while, or have it confirmed for a while, I should say, before that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to look forward to. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
Nice. Did you already, because now we're in your time, or I would say in your timeline and in your space, did you already see also something from our past as humanity or as the planet Earth, or was it just in your time frame?
It was mainly in my time frame and in the future time frame. I didn't see a lot of things from the past other than it being explained to me that we're all expressions of one God energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're kind of like godlets, basically. So if you think about, and I was, talking to my guides about this and asking, for more understanding and clarity. So the closest thing, and I'm translating this into like human terms
Mm-hmm.
as best, to kind of relate. So for personality of God, if you imagine the personality of God, think autism.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for autism is because God, and I don't know if you know much about when people have autism,
A
but
little bit. Mm-hmm.
okay. So basically, there's a sense of attachment and detachment at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the characteristics of God. The attachment is that God has created these frequencies of expression of itself, which are us. So we're all connected because we're all connected to the same source. And
Mm-hmm.
you can say God, source, energy, whatever is comfortable for you, but it's all the creator,
Mm-hmm.
basically. This creator has created everything in the universe from the expressions, of those frequencies, even in other dimensions, in other galaxies, everything, other species, everything. And the reason being is because this God wants to experience aspects of its expression that for a God, it's not God-like, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, um, let's say that a person is created that's very emotional, just very like cries when they're in love, cries when they're, unhappy, just a crybaby. That's an expression of God, but
Mm-hmm.
God can't be a crybaby because God is God. So God's created expression of that in order to experience that and understand and embrace that,
Mm-hmm.
but still be God, basically. So that's why I say God is on the spectrum, because God is attached and detached at the same time. And God is very, we're all expressions of that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that God created us, but we are, we're complex because we have all of the emotions that God doesn't express
Yeah.
on a regular basis. And so in doing so, this is truly what love is, because we have been given the opportunity to have free will, to love, to hate, to do all of the things that sometimes God, our creator, source, is not really happy with and does not resonate with or feels as good. But still, we're not cut off from that energy source because we're expressions of that one energy source, which is God. So if you imagine, let's pretend you are God, you have a child, that child ends up being very disobedient, disruptive, all things bad or whatever. There's no way that you can cut your DNA off from that child. That's still your child.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you can ever say, you can say, I deny that this is my child, or disown them, but you're never ever going to truly disown them because they came from your womb.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's kind of the same thing, that God's not necessarily pleased, but the expression of the act of love to us is that that connection is never broken, even though you as God, it doesn't make you feel good that your child is acting this way.
Mm-hmm.
You still have a sense of love and a sense of purpose and hope for the child. That's one of the deepest forms of love that you can have, is to love something, but also allow them to be free
Mm-hmm.
to express, even if that expression is against what you would want.
Yeah.
And, it tries to teach us the same thing.
And it's also it's a really nice picture you created there. Like, you can't take the DNA out of the child. Like, it's just always
Mm-hmm.
there. That's
Mm-hmm.
really a good point. And you already brought up love as a topic twice. I really loved the picture of that's why people love so deeply when they resonate and the frequency creates the love song. And
Mm-hmm.
what did you learn about love? Did you learn anything on top of what you already saw, like that? Basically, God is also love and never cuts off uh, their own love to all the children.
I'm going to say something else controversial, but
Ooh.
I'm more comfortable because you're all the way in Germany, so you're nowhere.
Okay.
You're nowhere where I am. So I'll give you all the controversial stuff.
Yes, please.
Okay, so before my near-death experience, and this may not be, other people hear this may be like, well, duh, but anyway, before my near-death experience, I had some more conservative views on love in regards to like homosexuality and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I had friends who were homosexuals, so I wasn't a hater, but I also, because of my religious beliefs, I had this sense of like, again, okay, well, there's no way that I can, kind of compartmentalize it and just kind of like, you know, well, I guess when I die, then I'll know, is
Mm-hmm.
what the true thing is. And, but of course, in the religious community, you're always told if you're homosexual, you're going to go to hell and things like that.
Okay.
Okay. So, in my near death experience, my guides actually showed me that that is completely incorrect.
Mm.
And that basically, again, love is a frequency, and love, people are expressions that are, it's not so much about the gender expression, meaning you can't love somebody because they're a different gender. You can't, it's more about the intention, and taught me about the fact that everything is intention.
Mm-hmm.
So I could do something, if I do something with a good intention, it's the intention that matters.
Okay.
So when even, and I had read the Bible, I think kind of like maybe 3 times or something, and studied, other spiritual texts as well. Um, like um, the Torah, and uh, some other ones. And I basically saw that what God doesn't want us to do is to love people without intention,
Mm.
to love with disconnection, because that's the opposite frequency of love.
Okay.
Loving with disconnection is like a one night stand. It's kind of like it's the same thing that we do to food. It's the difference between organic food and genetically modified food.
Mm-hmm.
One is fabricated and is made quickly and is made without love and without purpose.
Yeah.
And the other one is intricately and intricately, made, grown, complex, filled with soul. versus one that's fabricated and artificial.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what God or the creator wants in regards to our intention with love. And it's a lack of honor when you just kind of do something for physical purposes without the sense of love and intention.
Mm-hmm.
It's also disruptive to your frequency when you do things that are perverse, because you're doing it purely from the carnal and the physical,
Mm-hmm.
and not from the soul, which makes you separated from that love frequency of God. So, short answer is, what I learned about love with that is that it's not so much who you love, but how you love.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really matters. And a lot of people could say, oh yeah, I knew that, and yeah, that's what I've been saying, and whatever. But it's one thing to be shown that by spiritual guides in a near-death experience, to have solid proof, because it was something that I kind of just accepted to love my friends who were homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes, and just stay away from the topic of heaven or hell, basically. But now I know that that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
I know that God is, I know that the complexity of the divine is more, everything that we do. It's not the surface. It's not how we look, how we present, or whatever. It's what our soul is,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
So there's also a lot of intention there in the divine.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We were created intentionally. Mm-hmm. And and I also correlate a lot of these things, because I'm just one of those people who likes to correlate science and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
When you start out as a tadpole, basically, and a fetus starts growing, it has the expression of both male and female.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the intention being the hormone and the gene presentation that changes the fetus to either male or female. That's the intention.
Okay, so interesting. Yeah, that brings us to the question, or brings me to the question, incarnation. Are we deciding for ourselves which gender we want to be?
That's a very good question. I don't know if we're deciding about the gender, but we're definitely deciding to be here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah, you chose this.
So for everyone who's not having all the good intention, because also the story about the intention was like, oh, I see so many people who have a really bad job and they don't love their job. So the intention
Mm-hmm.
on, right? And then they have the frequencies like mashed up, going to a horrible
Mm-hmm.
job. All of that resonated with me right now when you were saying that.
Yeah. I have this conversation with my daughter that I believe she chose to be a girl here when
Yeah.
she came. So even though for me it's theoretical or speculative, if I tell you, that yes, we choose gender, I don't actually know if we choose gender, but I do know we choose to be here.
Yeah.
And I think that what happens though is that the gender expression that we end up being is what's best for our soul journey in this life.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of whether we chose it or it's chosen for us, either way, it's supposed to align with our life journey. And it's supposed to align. Oh, go ahead.
So it's kind of needed, even if I maybe
Exactly, it's
feel like
needed.
something, I would like to be a boy, it's still better for my journey that I'm came here as a girl.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And we all have divine feminine and masculine energy anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just one presents more than the other.
Yeah. So interesting. And you said you had 3 guides. So I already got the feeling you were very well prepared for your near-death experience, having all these questions in mind, getting your wish fulfilled. Tell me something about your 3 guides. That's sounds like the Christmas story, you know?
That was a really profound statement and just hit me because I didn't realize that that I was prepared for my near-death experience. I certainly did not feel prepared, but you saying that, I suppose, part of me was in a way because of the way that I thought beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So what was your question?
The question was about, so it's great that you take that away. I love that. The question was about the 3 guides. You said you had 3
the
guides,
guides.
and every guide did something different for you. I would say for you because
Yeah.
they brought you somewhere else, or you had different experiences with them.
Yeah. One of my guides looked like my daughter,
Oh.
and I knew it wasn't my daughter, but they presented like my daughter for my to keep me anchored and to keep me fighting to come back because I probably would not have. So, and it was easier for my understanding. So, yeah, she looked like, or he or it looked like my guy, looked like my daughter. And, I told you about one of the other ones who took me through the Akashic records and one that assisted me in actually traveling to other planets and through dimensions.
And
So,
even though it's already a longer period of time ago that you had that near-death experience, do you still have the feeling of being connected to them?
that's a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Yeah, you get the golden star today. Your questions are great. The interesting thing is, no, I don't feel connected to the to 2 of them. They were for the that experience on the other side. But something interesting happened. My somebody that I'm going to say, somebody that I know, okay, sees auras and can also see spiritual presentations of things, of us, like souls. She can see angels or people's angel guides or whatever.
Yeah.
I speak to her regularly. And since my near-death experience, she keeps, periodically seeing a guide with me that looks just like me.
Oh.
So, long story short, we figured out that the version of me that died is also my guide, my higher self. So I've fractalized my spirit. So my fractalized spirit is also with me and guiding me.
Fascinating. I really like that. Yeah, if you have these abilities, so if your friend has these abilities, it's so cool if you get like that kind of feedback as well.
Yeah, even we even kind of noticed it when my dog would periodically look at me and then look at like up in the air, like in front of me, and then look at me again and look at like the dog was confused, seeing like 2 me's, I should say.
It's like, who is the real one of the 2 that I see?
So, yeah, so that was unexpected, but interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to the fact that there are different expressions of us in other dimensions.
Yeah.
So, we're fractalized in other dimensions.
And this is like, I always imagine a near-death experience then like a portal that is opening exactly these moves to other dimensions so we actually can connect to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And you also said you learned something about the future, your own future timeline, and also about the collective of Earth?
Yeah. My own future timeline, I don't want to share
That's
because
okay.
there's some, ongoing stuff and personal stuff, but either way, I know that, a lot of things that have been happening, I saw. And so I know a little bit of certain outcomes and what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to the future of us, I mean, we're doing this recording in October.
Yeah.
I was on a podcast in early April. I think it was April 3rd or April 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And my guides have been telling me for about 4 years prior that we were going to have a mass contact event, UFO contact event,
Okay.
and and it was counting down. So like this year was the last year, and so I reluctantly just kept on feeling it, and I can't deny information that I'm getting, even though me myself, want to be kind of like practical about it
Mm-hmm.
and not always share about it. But I, kept getting that we were going to have some major event and a major contact event by the end of the year. And I had said that there was going to be some UFO disclosures, and lo and behold, at the end of April, there was some UFO disclosures that are still being disclosed, and there's more coming in
Okay.
regards to that. By the end of the year, we're going to have a mass contact event. And I also, uh, about, I think a month and a half ago, said that there was going to be some kind of conflict a small conflict of some kind. Um, I don't know if this is, what's happened with Israel
Okay.
now, because I didn't really see Israel, but I saw a conflict happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did see that, and that there were going to be some other things coming up, like there's going to be some geological activity that's happening that starts as soon as next week is going to be the start of a few things that make a series of events that kind of continue to climax
Mm-hmm.
into a major geological and climate catastrophe, unfortunately.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're still getting information, or how can I imagine
Yes.
that? Like, are you meditating, or is it just coming to you?
Yes. No, I meditate.
Mm-hmm.
There are two things that happen. Sometimes I meditate, and in my meditation, like I get interrupted with this information,
Okay.
like by my guides,
Mm-hmm.
just saying, like it's just like placed on my heart, like this is going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's mostly that I get information more so than I don't often seek it out. Um, and I know that that's a phenomenon that happens to people who've had NDEs, that you get more psychic awareness. So I'm not spooked by it or anything like that. The only thing that, kind of, is uncomfortable for me is when I have information, I don't like to like just go out and like panic mode, fear
Mm-hmm.
mongering and, sharing things. So sometimes I think a little longer, like, okay, should I share this? And if so, how should I share this? And how much of it should I share? And where
Mm-hmm.
should I share? So sometimes I think I probably overthink that, but yeah, that's how I get information a lot. And meditation, I still the guides that I have now are not the ones that were in my near death experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, it's just my higher self and my guide as well, my angel guide. I've had an ancestor before that was kind of a guide, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of these things, you know, when people talk about their guides, you know, you have to kind of, I think it's more acceptable now, but sometimes you wonder, okay, is this person crazy? Or, you know, things like that. But if we really listen, all of us have guides that are telling us things, that are trying to instruct us and help us through life, because it's very challenging in this life presentation in this reality.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And if you say that you get all these information and sometimes you tend to overthink, but you're not panicking, is it for you the feeling that it's a burden, or do you still see it as a gift?
I still see it as a gift,
Mhm.
but it can also be a burden. You
Mhm.
know, there were things that you know, because of our political climate, I didn't share because, like, I know certain things, but don't know if it's responsible to share with
Mhm.
people in a world where people just kind of take off and run with information and then kind of change the narrative,
Yeah.
you know. So I sometimes it's a burden, but it's mostly a gift.
Mhm. Beautiful. And when you look back over the past round about 8 years that it's happened to you, like what would be the biggest change for you that you see in your life?
The biggest change for me, I think, is that I live more from a place of, like, my conscious space has expanded,
Hmm.
meaning that when I look at things, it's not always now from point A to point B.
Hmm.
There's there it's more spatial. So I've gone from algebra to geometry, let's just say that. So in my awareness and in the way that I conduct my life.
Really good. Really good. And if you could like if you want to share something as a message for other humans that maybe seek out information for NDEs or anything else, what is it that you could give as an advice or an information for other people?
You mean people who are looking for more information on
Yeah,
NDEs, or what do you mean?
yeah, for
Um,
people who look for more information.
I would say the first thing is, do not try to astrally project
Hmm.
yourself, unless you know what you're doing and you you are grounded. You know, you know that you're basically, a lot of people are starting to try to astrally project. Well, not starting, they've been doing this. A lot of people try to astrally project,
Hmm.
and literally they're going from being a toddler spiritually to trying to astral project.
Yeah.
And this is real stuff. There are dimensions within the entire space in the room that you're sitting in that you don't have any awareness of right now, but they literally, scientifically, and spiritually exist. And when people are trying to do that without, you know, just kind of running off half cocked, not really understanding, you can pick up things that you don't want to pick up, and you can you know, experience things that you don't want to experience. And it's just spiritually and physically dangerous. So I would say that you need to learn a little more or have the help of somebody guide you in
Hmm.
order to astrally project, um, and not do it until you understand things a little better.
Hmm.
The next thing is that understanding a near-death experience, I wanted to say that when people are in comas, they are traveling in and out of their body. They can hear you.
Hmm.
So just know that if you're trying to encourage somebody to stay encouraging them in general, they can hear you. They could even be out of their body walking around you without you even knowing it. So just be really mindful and present about that. Don't ever give up on somebody, even when you think it's time to give up. Like I said, my daughter was the only one who did not give up on me, in spiritually speaking, and expect me to die, because her angel guide came to her and said, your mother's going to get out of the hospital before Christmas. Her angel guide told her that in August. So she was confused, because when she came to the hospital, or when she last saw me in the hospital, she heard that I was getting discharged in a couple of weeks. So she thought she was initially, like, maybe it was a lie, because her angel guide saying it's before Christmas, and the timeline, it just didn't add up.
Yeah.
So when it was already into winter, and I was still in the hospital, and I was dying and everything else, and I was being given my last rites, she remembered what her angel guide said, and she kept telling everybody, no, my mother's going to live. She's getting out of here. And of course, they kind of like gaslit her, and was kind of like, oh, she just doesn't get it. There's no way that somebody could survive this. And they were correct. I mean, all of my organs were literally failing. My lungs didn't work anymore. And they're working now. I had complete sepsis.
Wow.
And so when you have that, your cells die off every single day, every single moment. You've got some cells dying. Imagine if those moments are over a couple of months, how many dead cells that you would have. And now here I am, rejuvenated.
Yeah.
So I definitely had a healing event. I still I have triggered issues from that, but in general, I healed from that situation, because my organs were failing and dying off. And so when somebody, keep having faith for a person, keep believing in a person, even until the last breath, because you never know what's going to happen. Yeah. And I would say also that for near-death experiences, that people always want to know if somebody has information from the future, what that information is. But the information about the present journey, about the soul, and about our existence is sometimes more important than the future. Because the future always changes. We shift timelines constantly. So there are things that, that somebody could say are going to come true that end up not coming true, because something shifted, a decision was made somewhere else, and things changed. So we have to remember to focus on the present and on the lessons that are going to be and are going to help us in this particular existence, because we're here, even though we don't fully remember it all the time, we're here for refinement and for our soul journey, which goes beyond this existence. So we need to keep that in perspective, and thinking about all the things that we go through and the lessons that we have. They're not just for this life. They happened because there's a life beyond this that those things are supposed to help us with too.
Oh, and that's also so beautiful to know, like, everything I live through, or maybe even endure, it's something that I have in my backpack, take with me, and I can like feed from that in every other experience.
Exactly.
That's so cool. Really nice. So I already come to my last question. My last question is always, what is your gift to the world?
Oh, geez. Um, well, I think everybody has a gift to the world. Mine, I guess, just sharing my near-death experience and, helping people to understand and to feel comfort in knowing that this is not all there is. There's definitely an afterlife. There is definitely energy. There's definitely a creator. There's definitely, we're all connected. Some people ask, are we in a simulation? And in our more simple human minds, we think simulation like computers, because here on Earth, simulations have to do with computers.
Yeah.
But that's not the origin of the word simulation. So the universe presents like a simulation, but it's not just a computer, meaning soulless and things like that. So from that perspective, we're not in a simulation, but they're simulating activities that are going on basically in the universe. And yeah, and I think that's probably the gift I have to share is what I was given, which is my experiences. I've had a lot of interesting experiences throughout my life besides my NDE. The NDE was the kicker. Never saw that coming in the bingo cards. But but yeah, I think that's probably my experience. I did want to share something that I got in my meditation about a meditation chant that was kind of given to me by my guides.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think people need to consider now is, as we're getting bombarded with information and things happening in the world, it can become emotionally overwhelming. And sometimes, depending on our role in life, we give up a part of ourselves, or we are caretakers to other things and put ourselves last. So this chant came to me that you can sit quietly and basically say, I am what matters. And the reason why that came to me is because lots of times we kind of deflect that because we're either a mother, a father, taking care, a dog take care, caregiver or something. We're always trying to take care of something else. So we have a hard time saying that we matter. So I was chanting and saying, I am what matters. I am what matters. And embracing and feeling good about that it's okay to say, I am what matters. And then I realized, and what my guides told me is, I am. I am. I am is also the English expression for God. So I am myself. I am merged with God. And matters is we are stardust. We are matter. We are like physically, physics wise, we're matter. So in saying, I am what matters, it's a merging of ourselves with also God, and feeling that expression of it being, being content with that, sitting with it, and having that comfort that I am what matters.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's really, it's like, it's a really cool tip to do every single day.
Yes.
Oh,
It helps me. I couldn't go a day without meditating.
me neither. People always say like, how do you have time for that? It's like, I make time for it.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you so much, Elle. It was super inspiring and super interesting. So thank you for your time and for sharing your experience.
Thank you, Dagmar.